Hi there, fellow entrepreneur. Congratulations to you. You've learned so much and worked hard to distill your idea down to a hypothesis ready for validation. But you know what? The world is a very big place, and most ideas, and more importantly, their hypotheses, usually address very, very large audience. As for my idea, 10% of LinkedIn Premium users. An advantage of this particular idea is that the audience can be addressed digitally. And I'll teach you why this is usually a good thing when we create and run our validation experiments. But my target audience is LinkedIn Premium subscribers. And as we've learned earlier from the desktop research, there is about 40 million of them. So as I said, the world is a very big place. And for most ideas, the target audience that we've set in our hypothesis is global. Basically, all potential customers worldwide who fit into our hypothesis. So in my example, to validate that 10% of 40 million people located worldwide will subscribe to PingPang, the service that doesn't exist yet, we need to find a way to validate our hypothesis without having to implement PingPang, and more importantly, without spending $1 billion on marketing. So remember the idea validation framework rule. The whole concept is about validating before implementing. Or as I like to say, as a rule of thumb, fake it before you make it. So in this framework, we want to spend the absolute least amount of time, money, and effort on our idea before we know if it is the right idea. We think globally, but we test locally. I call this zoom in. So to prepare our hypothesis for validation, we need to zoom in. So what is zooming in and how do we do it? That's what I'm going to teach you right now. So as I said, for most hypotheses, such as the one you created for your own idea, the market we address is typically global, such as a percentage of all LinkedIn Premium users for my idea, a percentage of all dog owners for that dog bear idea, a percentage of all teenagers with a smartphone if our idea is an app aimed at teenagers, a percentage of all women with dark hair if our idea is a styling product for that target group. You get the idea. The target audience we have in our hypothesis is large, often global. So to prepare our idea and its hypothesis for validation, we need to zoom in and seek to find a smaller, addressable audience that mirrors our target audience as much as possible, while being addressable and much cheaper for our validation experiments. Now, to do this, we have to be a bit creative. In my workshops, we spend a lot of time finding representative, mirrored target audiences. And we also spend a lot of time on which idea validation experiment to choose. That's because these two things are connected. And the best way I can teach you this is by giving you some examples. In the next video, I will introduce you to a bunch of validation experiments, so you can also watch these to understand that connection. So what is a representative zoomed-in target audience that mirrors all LinkedIn Premium users? Well, the short answer will be a smaller group of LinkedIn Premium users. So instead of saying 10% of all premium users, that would be the global audience, I would say 10% of a smaller group of LinkedIn Premium users. That would be my zoomed-in, local, mirrored version of my global audience. And because my audience is digital, it makes my task of zooming in pretty easy. So all premium users have a badge that shows that they have the premium subscription. One way to find representative, addressable, zoomed-in audience of the global audience is to browse through random profiles on LinkedIn, look for those with the premium badge, and build a list of, say, 1,000 people. Now, how big your zoomed-in audience needs to be depends on several factors. And we'll talk about that a bit later, but we have to balance the cost and effort of finding and addressing the group against the risk of getting unreliable data from our experiment. But remember, we can also do more experiments. So for now, we'll focus on how to zoom in, and once you've mastered this skill, you can easily adjust the size of your zoomed-in audience to fit with your idea, your hypothesis, and the validation experiments that you will be using. Then we can test, collect data, and possibly adjust. So here are a few more examples of zooming in to find a local addressable audience that mirrors our global audience. What is assumed in group of all dog owners? Well, dog owners usually participate in various activities with their dogs, such as dog training or agility events. At such an outdoor activity, you have the chance to meet a representative group of all dog owners. How you would practically do that is covered in the section on validation experiments, but we can find a group of 10, 20, or even 50 dog owners at a local dog event like that. That is a good example of how to practically find assumed in audience. So what would be an assumed in representative audience for teenagers with a smartphone? Well, you can approach a school classroom, a teenage sports team. Other options would be an online community where teenagers interact, or establish a campaign against teenagers on TikTok and so on. For women with dark hair, you could go to a beauty salon or a hair product store, or find Facebook groups or online forums specifically geared towards women interested in dark hair. So you've probably already started thinking about how to zoom in to find a representative smaller audience mirroring the global target audience in your hypothesis, and that's great. Try to think of several zoomed in options, as you'll need them when we start looking at the different validation experiments that we will use to validate our ideas. Which experiment fits your idea will also influence how we can best zoom in, and as you've learned about the validation experiments, you can go back, think about different ways to zoom in, and then optimize your method. For my idea, Ping Pang, I've decided to build that list of 1,000 premium LinkedIn profiles randomly selected by browsing LinkedIn. And I've estimated that building this list of profiles will take me about 3 hours of manual work, or a few minutes if I bother to write a small script that collects profiles and injects them into a spreadsheet. So this is the end of this section. And because we need to decide how to zoom in conjunction with which validation experiment to use, there is no assignment for this section. But keep in mind that zooming in to find the representative addressable audience that reflects or mirrors your large, typically global target audience is a crucial skill you need to practice. And we will do that alongside choosing validation experiments. So remember, we think globally, but we test locally. See you in the next one.